great day Tuesday turned out to be. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Seattle Kraken go into Vancouver and win for the first time there, defeating the Canucks 5-2 for their second win in a row, and now are just one win away from clinching a spot in the playoffs. No thanks to Vegas, who loses to Nashville, but thanks in part to Chicago, who snaps an 8-game losing streak to defeat the Calgary Flames in regulation, which does help set up the Kraken to potentially clinch that spot on Thursday. But the one thing the Kraken did clinch today with their win in Vancouver was the NHL record, taking it from Vegas, of the most points by a franchise in their second season in the league, with Vegas finishing their second season at 93, setting the then record, the Kraken hitting 94 tonight, or yesterday as of when you're watching this, do set that record with still 5 more games to build on it. Plus, I suppose to put the cherry on top of all of it, for those of you who are just Seattle sports fans in general, the Mariners, after a bit of a rough start following their opening day win, do blow out the Angels 11-2, which was nice to see. So at least they're hopefully back on track. Well, that was still happening in Seattle. As for how the Kraken managed to set this record and put themselves on the doorstep of the playoffs, up north of the border, well, lineup-wise, there are a couple of changes. One, obviously a change in net with it being the second half of a back-to-back, Martin Jones back in. Also, for Jones playing where he grew up near Vancouver. And then we also found out late that Bjorkstrand was going to be a late scratch with Froden taking his spot. I mean, they switched things up. It was actually Sprong who played on that line, but Froden in the lineup for Bjorkstrand, which, as of the start of the game, we found out was because Bjorkstrand is having his first kid, so congratulations to the Bjorkstrand family. Lots of small kids in this Kraken locker room, so hopefully they're all able to get enough sleep over these last few games and then into the playoffs. I mean, they're professionals, I'm sure they'll find a way, but I can tell you from personal experience, recent experience at that especially those first few months, it is not easy to get the sleep that you would like. Speaking of which, when it comes to the team in general at the start of this game, well, I wouldn't necessarily say they were sleepy at the start of the game, but things do not go very well, at least on the scoreboard through these first few minutes. Well, the Kraken, honestly, were getting the better of the Canucks as far as offensive zone pressure and even scoring chances, with Eberle getting a breakaway and then Beniers and McCann trying the same thing that they scored on in the last game, with Beniers skating in, then dropping a pass from McCann in the high slot. That shot actually gets through the goaltender, but still ends up wide. The Kraken can't get on the board with either of those chances, and then back the other way, less than 5 minutes in, a bit of an awkward play as Kuzmenko just kind of loses the puck trying to go backhand to forehand going around Jones, but it goes right out in front of the crease, and standing in the crease behind Jones is Elias Pettersson, and he just kind of makes a nice play to toe drag the puck behind his back through the crease, past Borgen and into the net to give the Canucks the 1-0 lead. The Kraken do at least respond to this by continuing to get pressure back down at the Vancouver end, and actually end up getting a power play out of it, a power play which really doesn't go much of anywhere. They do end up getting one shot on it, but that doesn't go in the net, and then not long after that power play comes to an end for the Kraken, Vancouver, once again opportunistic, dumps the puck into the Kraken end, gets a fortunate bounce off of the end boards as it goes from one side of the net, bouncing off the end boards behind the net, out to the other side where Garland gets to it, draws Jones way out of the net, and Jones definitely pulling himself out of position a bit here. Garland was on a tight enough angle that Jones could have stayed in the crease and just put his shoulder to the post, but he comes pretty much all the way out. Garland then goes to the other side, and it's basically a tap in from there. So Vancouver, a halfway through, or a little bit over halfway through the first period, 2-0 lead, which normally would seem like a bad thing, but in this particular case, not only, again, have the Kraken been getting the better of the Canucks everywhere but the scoreboard so far, but when it comes to teams that give up multi-goal leads, none are better in the entire NHL than this year's Vancouver Canucks. As at the start of the game, they'd already given up 9 multi-goal leads to go on to lose. That isn't even including the multi-goal leads that they had given up and then still fought back to win. The Kraken, by the end of the night, as we know, would make that double digits. And it all starts just a couple minutes after the Canucks take that 2-0 lead, as Gord gets the puck into the offensive end and then just kind of takes a shot from still well outside. He's above the faceoff circle, up near the corner, does put it through the legs of the defenseman in front of him, But there's a lot of ice between that and the goaltender Delia, who absolutely should have had this. He doesn't though, it goes straight over his pad and into the net to pull the Kraken back to within 1. But then to end the period for the final minute and 40 seconds, the Canucks are going to get a power play, and they very nearly score on it on a number of occasions. It's a pretty dangerous looking power play, the first one here for the Canucks anyway, as the only reason that they, and Brock Besser in particular, don't score on this power play to make it 3-1 going into the intermission is thanks to Martin Jones. It may not have been a fantastic start to the game for him, but he makes a couple of big saves on tips by Besser right in front of the crease. Okay, so the Kraken survived that and even managed to kill off the last 20 seconds to start out the second period. So all they have to do now is get back into that rhythm, get some momentum going, and of course they're going to the kill again just a couple minutes in. And just a minute into that kill, Wemberg gets a little bit too hasty trying to lift a stick, and instead lifts his stick right into the face of JT Miller, and it's now going to be a minute of 5-on-3. Thanks in large part to Yanni Gourde, though, with a clutch one face-off at the start of this, and then a couple of clears himself. The Kraken managed to kill off this almost minute of 5-on-3, I think without even giving up a shot on goal. And then right as it comes to an end, Dunn out of the box gets released on a completely free breakaway, but the save is made by Delia. Then the Canucks get a rush back the other end to start their remaining minute of power play. So the Kraken, even though they did a good job of killing off that 5-on-3, they still now have a minute of penalty kill left, which about 30 seconds in, the Canucks make another mistake. This time it's Elias Pettersson who gets a little bit too far up into the offensive end without a defenseman behind him. Eventually the puck ends up behind him, as well as Tanev and McCann back down the other way for a 2-on-1. And honestly, McCann might as well not have been there. Really, the only thing he does here is serve to draw the defenseman towards the middle, allowing Tanev the open shot, which he's staring down that net the entire way, not looking past for 1 second. And as he gets up to the faceoff dot, he fires off that shot and buries it top corner to give the Kraken their second goal of the game, their second shorthanded goal in as many nights. Back-to-back games with McCann's shorthander the night before, and also completing the comeback, tying the game at 2. But as for the rest of the second, a few minutes later, after really not much happens for a little while here, towards the middle of the period, the Kraken get the puck into the offensive end, and then Beniers makes a pretty nice play, laying a hit along the boards down in the corner. And I don't know if he really ends up touching this puck. They don't end up giving him an assist on what turns into a goal, so I assume he doesn't touch it. Either way, it squirts out towards the net where Eberle is there, scoops up that puck, whips around, fires off the shot, and puts it in top corner past the other shoulder this time of Delia to give the Kraken the 3-2 lead and really complete the comeback to not only tie it, but now take a lead that they would never surrender. And from there, the rest of the second period is pretty much all Kraken, as I don't think the Canucks got a shot on goal for the final 7 or 8 minutes of the period. The Kraken get a couple more good scoring chances and a couple more power plays, the first of which comes with 7 minutes or so left, and with the second unit out there, they do end up scoring as the puck is worked around the outside, and eventually Sprong just kind of skates it right up into the high slot, fires off a shot straight down the middle, and it's tipped at least by one player, the only one that ends up getting credit, that being Jaden Schwartz right in front of the net. He tips that puck out of the air, down, I don't know if it went through the 5-hole or what, but it goes off the ice, past Delia and into the net to give the Kraken the 4-2 lead and the power play goals. They've now scored on the power play in 4 straight games, so all of a sudden both special teams are getting hot just at the right time. I mean, even if the playoffs don't have as many penalties as we talked about typically than regular season games, it still has been one of the biggest weaknesses in the Kraken game all season long. So if they can get that ship righted going into the playoffs, that's certainly a good sign. Of course, the face-off circle, I don't think there's any curing that at this point, but you pick your battles. Coming out of the power play, the Kraken continue to press. Eventually, Geeky draws one of 2 calls that he would draw in this game. The Kraken finished the second period on the power play, which although they do nearly score again, this one comes up empty, and then we head into a third that, honestly, this third period was kind of a nothing. The Kraken do very much go into that trap sort of style that they played against the Coyotes, just the Canucks don't make as many mistakes as the Coyotes did for the Kraken to pounce on. And this third period, I want to say, ends with just 6 shots on goal between the two teams. even threw a double minor penalty, as once again, Wember getting a little bit carried away with his stick, ends up spending 6 minutes in the box, which is pretty uncommon for him to spend any time in the box, but he spends 6 minutes there for high sticking penalties alone in this game. But the Kraken kill all of that off, I think, without a shot on goal. Then they get a power play with Geeky drawing another one. They don't get a shot on that one either, as they, at that point, I think we're pretty happy to just kill off 2 minutes of clock. Eventually, the Canucks do get that one more good scoring chance with about 4 minutes left that we talked about on a breakaway for Miller, that just as he comes up to the net, he tries to make the move to go around Jones, but as he does that, Beniers, with a incredible hustle play to get back, comes back and lifts the stick of Miller to prevent him from even getting a shot off. And that would be a rare save of the game from not a goaltender as far as the Kraken broadcast was concerned. And eventually, with about 2 minutes left in the game, the Canucks would go empty net. And then about a minute later, Beniers, from below the faceoff dot in the Kraken end, fires the puck all the way down as he whips around 180, pulling the puck off the boards. And he hits the net almost dead center to put the Kraken up 5-2. Beniers, his 22nd of the season. And the Kraken, obviously at that point, have the game out of reach and go on to win with that same final score. So in the end, the Kraken go into Vancouver and take care of business for the second game in a row. Maybe the one part of business that Kraken fans might have liked to see the Kraken do a little bit better job of taking care of would be to go after Tyler Myers, the public enemy number one since the last meeting of these two teams that saw Beniers miss a couple of games and the All-Star game with that concussion. But unfortunately, the Kraken don't empty the bench to jump Myers the second he touches the ice for the first time. They do lay a couple of hits. I think Borgen got Myers with a hit right on that first shift. And then Gord gives Myers a couple of shoves around the net a little bit later. But other than that, Myers was pretty much invisible in this game. There was a fight between Borgen and Bear a little bit later on where Borgen definitely wins that fight after Bear had a little bit of an extra poke on Jones while Jones had the puck frozen. But other than that, the Kraken just kind of go in, take care of business, leave without anybody getting hurt or in trouble for suspensions or anything like that, which, you know, if you try to go out there with the idea of just getting a pound of flesh for what happened to Beniers in the last game, that's what you could run into. Fortunately, though, the Kraken just settle for making the Canucks pay on the scoreboard. And as far as that's concerned, for what it's worth, the Kraken haven't lost to the Canucks since Beniers took that hit. So, yeah, I guess that's working out at the very least. But really, even outside of who the opponent was in the history there, as we've mentioned a few times here over the last few games, probably the most important thing for the Kraken at this point is to just play good, disciplined hockey and try to play full 60 minutes, which they got close to doing in this game. There is certainly a bit of an issue there with taking too many penalties from the end of the first period through the first few minutes of the second. And obviously some opportunistic plays that led to that 2-0 lead for Vancouver at the start of the first. But even while Vancouver was taking that lead, the Kraken again were playing like the better team. They just weren't getting the bounces. Yeah, you definitely would like to clean up those penalties that could have made things worse in that window between the end of the first and partway through the second. The Kraken did a great job on special teams once again in this game, which really made the difference and allowed them to get back into this and then pull away in that second period where they did pretty much take over this game. And then in the third, although they only get 2 shots on goal in the third period, again, they've got a 2-goal lead and they're just looking to ice it away and take advantage of mistakes if they're there. But if they're not there, just make sure you don't make any mistakes in the defensive end to allow the opponent to get back into the game. Now, I will say that when it comes to playing better opponents like Vegas for the last 2 games, or certainly once they get into the playoffs, this trap or turtle mode style, whatever you want to call it, when they have a lead in the third period, will get a little bit more nerve-wracking, especially if it's, say, I don't know, Dallas with a 6-on-5 towards the end of the game. But at least for now, just take the points and cross that bridge when you get to it. And like I said in the beginning, when it comes to those points, the Kraken are now just 2 away from clinching that spot in the playoffs. And that can come in the form of winning on Thursday against the Coyotes, which then they're in thanks to a tiebreaker. I'm pretty sure they have the tiebreaker over Nashville, who would be the only team that could catch them, at least tie them anyway, in points if they were to win one more game. But even if they were to lose out, all they need is one more loss from Calgary and Nashville to then clinch, With Calgary, at this point, the best they can get is 95 points, and Nashville, the best they can get is 96. So the Kraken, with 5 games left, all they have to do is get past that mark to get their spot in. And finally, for the Kraken 3 stars, my first star in this game is going to be Jordan Eberle with a goal and an assist and a great game otherwise, as he continues to be an absolute Canuck killer. Even if the Kraken haven't always done well against their rivals from across the border, Eberle has consistently done well against this team and just continues that in this game. Second star for me, I'm going to go with Vince Dunn. A fantastic game from him as well, especially on the defensive end. He continues to prove why he's going to get a big raise in the offseason. Even if, actually, does he get a point in this game? Wow, okay, I guess he didn't score in this game. But even still, a fantastic 200-foot game from Dunn, as he continues to show that even if he isn't on the scoreboard, he is very, very important to this team, especially that pairing of he and Larson. If they aren't going, then the puck is probably going in the back of the Kraken net. Unfortunately, that did not happen a whole ton in this one. Although, maybe the one issue for Dunn in this game is that he does go to the box to start that series at the start of the third that led to the 5-on-3, but the Kraken survived that, and again, he was fantastic otherwise. As far as my third star, speaking of that 5-on-3, in large part, although he does get a goal in this game and actually gets the Kraken on the board first, I'm going with Yanni Gourde, pretty much because he's the one that kills off that, especially 5-on-3 portion of those overlapping power plays. Gourde, again, does get the goal, but just up and down the ice, forechecking, back-checking. I mean, we know what we expect from Gourde, but especially on the penalty kill, he has been one of the better killers for the Kraken, as this penalty kill has actually been one of the best penalty kills in the league since mid-January. As always, though, I'd love to know what you guys think down in the comments section, who your 3 stars of this game would be. Certainly Beniers is one you could make an argument for, as well as Will Borgen had a quietly really good game. 6 hits in this game, so as far as trying to exact a pound of flesh from the Canucks, Borgen was certainly leading the way there with, again, the 6 hits as well as the fight that he had against Bear. So, yeah, a couple of other guys certainly worth mentioning. And again, a big win and a chance to clinch on Thursday, regardless of what happens in the games tomorrow, by the way. Although Calgary and Winnipeg do play, even if Winnipeg wins that game in regulation, the Kraken still do have to win one more or have Nashville lose one more in order for them to clinch. And so, until then, if you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below to support the channel. I appreciate you using them. Until next time, which hopefully the Kraken will punch their ticket to that first ever playoff berth for this franchise. Stay safe out there. Be good to each other. God bless, and go Kraken.